ay Pilipino, ang dugo'y maharlika. Likas sa aking puso at hikain kay ganda sa Pilipinas na aking bayan, lantay na perlas ng silanganan, waring na tipo ng kayamanan ng may kapal. Ako ay Pilipino, ako ay Pilipino, taas noo kahit kanino, ang Pilipino ay ako.
This documentary was purely based on the book Land Scams, Who Are to Be Blamed? An in-depth investigative report on the hidden history of the Philippines by Daniel Balmonte Frianesa. All Philippine history books that had ever been written were about people, places, and events. Nothing had been written about the very land geophysical setting upon which all these significant people and events had played their significant roles. This book is the very first. This is the hidden history of the lands of the Philippine Islands, uncovered through the diligent investigative work of Danny Frianesa. This is history recovered, which no one else could ever write so boldly. Only then, the author knows whose eyes were blinded by corruption. But through this documentary, aside from the sad book, the facts will now be imparted, and thus educating us that many people were still unaware, hoodwinked, even their eyes wide open. This research work is important for its political, social, and economic value for the Filipinos. Moreover, it is written in the true spirit of self-sacrifice for a noble ideal. There is virtue in courage, especially in pursuing one's values consistently, even in the face of risk. This investigative report stands as a clarification and also refute Vice President Noli de Castro's baseless allegation that OCT 01-4 is a fake title. This risky misinformation and other remarks expressing doubt and bewilderment, such as this one's for Ripley, it's almost funny and monumental fakery and a bad work of fiction pertaining to OCT 01-4 tends to twist the history, thus corrupts the mind of the reader. At a glance, we can even surmise that these remarks are all black propaganda meant to mislead millions of Filipinos who are aspiring and craving for a piece of land. The land is supposed to be the fulfillment of their dreams so that they could enjoy its resources. Instead, they are being deceived more than half a century by government officials concerned in land titling who annihilate and discredit the genuineness of archival documents which played a major role in our history. The product of dirty tricks were even published as authentic documents to conceal the truth and pave the way for land grabbers and big-time real estate developers to secure land for their selfish interests. Indeed, The government's involvement in the proliferation of fake titles through community mortgage program and the so-called socialized housing project had caused the flooding of fake titles all over the country. At present, there are millions of fake transfer certificates of titles derived from 100,000 fake original certificate of titles being distributed and sold to innocent, hapless victims. Landless farmers are still clamoring for the implementation of the comprehensive agrarian reform program. Millions of squatters are now residing in cramped quarters, usually victims of syndicates, land grabbers, and corrupt government agencies. Indeed, the painful truth hits us squarely in the eye. We Filipinos, including you and our poor kababayans, may unknowingly be a squatter in our own land. Our beloved Philippines is a rich and beautiful country. We are blessed with fertile, arable lands with flora, fauna, and natural resources as bountiful as that of the world's richest nations. But why are there so many idle lands, yet at the same time, so many homeless Filipinos? Why are lands being held by a select, selfish few? Let us put a stop to this endless cycle of corruption and exploitation. Together, let us wage war against fake land titles, titlers, and land grabbers. Peacefully negotiate, organize, and unite for clean land titles. Expose and oppose the corrupt practices in government agencies concerned with land titling. Educate the people about land titling and ownership. Provide affordable land for the Filipinos and build a squatter-free Philippines. Revelations must be revealed and aptly shared. Let us all share this piece of history with others. By doing so, we empower ourselves with the knowledge of what is true and right. For more than half a century, most Filipinos are not aware of the historical events, how, when, and to whom the monumental title has been granted by the King of Spain. So as not to be led astray, let our history speak for itself. When society goes through a critical phase, one instinctively asks how things happened and why. One of the best ways to provide a satisfactory answer is to look into history, which explains the root of any social situation. In court proceedings, the litigants help the judges dig up the answers that would lead to a wise and unbiased judgment using facts that have been submitted. That is, substantial facts should be presented so as to direct the judges to the sources of knowledge needed for the proper conclusion of the law. Without such, the court can never decide on a true verdict, but would go instead through applying false information and making inappropriate decisions. Likewise, a historian without sources of basic facts can never write history, but only works of fiction. In any aspect, to arrive at a proper conclusion, identifying basic facts is more necessary than mere accumulation of facts. Should there be chronological arrangements needed to identify the intelligible patterns of history, we have to trace how one event leads to another and affirm how one undertaking resulted from another, hence creating in mind a concrete scenario of the past. History is the story of how things happened in the past. People who do not know the country's history will not understand the society they live in. History, which is a research of the past, would make us understand the present. But do we really understand our nation's history? Particularly how the 7,169 more or less islands and islets were acquired by the Spaniards? What land titles were issued, and whose names those vast tracts of land were recorded in that era? Sad to say, many Filipinos today have limited views or little understanding of vital issues and social trends, resulting probably from a damaged culture, colonial mentality, or a nauseous guessing methodology of analyzing the past. Their myopic views have made actual or true events, like the registration of big tracts of land covering provinces and municipalities, appear today so ridiculous, a myth, and a fantasy. Are we aware of the existence of tremendous land holdings acknowledged to be valid and authentic by the Supreme Court? This is the land title owned by the Piedad Estate. Allegedly, Piedad Estate was originally registered on March 12, 1912 under original Certificate of Title 614 of the Register of Deeds of the Province of Rizal in the name of the Philippine government. OCT number 614 covers about 164,127 hectares of land situated in the provinces of Laguna, Bulacan, Cavite, Bataan, Cebu, Rizal, Isabela, and Mindoro. If the Philippine government has adequately accepted the more complex ownership of land structure by recognizing OCT 614 of the Piedad Estate covering 8 provinces, which the 2 provinces were greatly and distantly separated by water, then it is more logical to consider the vast tracts of land of the Acopiados under PCT numbers 407, 408, 409, and 498 that cover only adjacent provinces, municipalities, and cities. Since most Filipinos are not familiar with these particular historical events, they were easily deceived by this long-accepted but misleading information. To refute the myth and reasonably ascertain of what was really happened in the past, let us look back at the events of those days. In page 251 of the book, The Philippines and the United States, The Forging of New Relations, and page 167 of the book, The Law on Squatting and Demolitions. This is how the history was recorded. Almost all the land titles granted by the court and land registration up to 1910 were of large private land holdings. The vastness of the land holdings was supported in page 86 of the same book, The Philippines and the United States, The Forging of New Relations, as stated. The doctrine was formulated with specific reference to the Philippines in the Treaty Declaration, Article 8, that the cession of the islands to the United States cannot in any respect impair the property or rights, which by law belong to the peaceful possession of property of all kinds of provinces, municipalities, public or private establishments, ecclesiastical or civic bodies, or any other association having legal capacity to acquire and possess property in the aforesaid territories. In our experience, we, the Maharlikans group, often encountered not only humiliation in court battles, but also through destructive interpretations by some government agencies and officials, particularly those concerned in land titling. These incidents have corrupted the minds of the public. This important issue will be discussed in part 2 of this documentary and hopefully will serve as an eye-opener to millions of Filipinos who were blinded about these monumental irregularities in the issuance of land titles. When the Spaniards came, the people were grouped in barangays ruled by a datu. They lived on land that all the barangay members helped to cultivate. No one claimed any parcel of territory as private property. By right of conquest, the Spanish crown claimed all the lands and freed the people from their datus, but made them vassals of the king. By virtue of the conquest and discovery of the Philippines by Magellan in 1521, these groups of islands became the exclusive patrimony and dominion of the Spanish government. The Spanish government since then took charge of distributing the lands by issuing royal grants and concessions to discoveries, settlers, vassals, and other people in varied forms. By means of these grants and concessions issued by the Crown of Spain, titles to land grants were acquired by the respective grantees. From the above-cited events, Spaniards did not land grab any land. No one owns the land as private property. Likewise, there was no supreme authority that ruled all the titles as a single political entity. Instead, neighboring tribes were constantly fighting one another. The first task of the Spaniards in the country was to unify the people under one religious faith and one government with its seat in Manila. If the crown helped spread the gospel of Christ, the Spaniards could in conscience colonize and impose their own government on the Filipinos. That is why the royal instructions mentioned pacification and hardly conquest. In the Spanish tradition, a conquered land was divided into encomiendas or sectors of land, together with its inhabitants who were entrusted. In Spanish, encomendar is to entrust to the encomendero as a reward for his service to the crown. In the Project Gutenberg e-book of the Philippine Islands, 1493 to 1898 by Emma Helen Blair, clearly cited that almost two-thirds of Mindanao was already allotted by the King of Spain to Don Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa as early as 1591 as stated. It is granted in Majesty's name that once the said pacification and colonization is completed, he may allot the land and island of Mindanao into encomiendas as follows. First, the ports and capitals shall be allotted to His Majesty's royal crown. Having subtracted this, he may, from the remainder, allot one-third part to himself. for the time mentioned in the said sections of new discoveries, and in whatever part he wishes, the other two-thirds remaining, he may allot and apportion among the soldiers enrolled under his banners and those who take part in the said pacification. The said Captain Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa said that he accepted the above covenant and agreement made as stated above, and promised to abide by its provisions. To this he pledged himself and his property, and both the said Governor and Captain General Gomez Perez Dasmariñas and the said Captain Esteban Rodriguez signed the agreement, written secretly by the said Governor before me, the undersigned, Notary, Manila, May 12, 1591. Gomez Perez Dasmariñas, Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa, before me, Juan de Cuellar. After Don Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa's death, he was succeeded by his eldest son, Don Eduardo, to one of the royal seats of the Spanish throne. The noble heritage of the Rodriguez clan of Spain became a legacy of succession as members of the royal court of Spain from generation to generation. His death as a Spanish conqueror has lived in the lives of his successors, Don Hermogenes A. Rodriguez and Don Miguel A. Rodriguez, who loved and honored his memory, and hence inherited the traits and dignity of the said ancestor, where the blue blood of the Rodriguezes was gallantly given to the Philippine Islands. Cognizant of the heroic achievements and valor of their great-great-grandfather, Don Esteban Rodriguez de Figueroa, Don Hermogenes A. Rodriguez, and Don Miguel A. Rodriguez, who were members of the royal court of Queen Isabella II, were appointed to alleviate the economy of the islands and to safeguard and protect the Philippines from foreign invasion. Also, they sought to settle disputes among the warring and discontented natives against the arrogant Spanish rule of the very disciplinarian friars and domineering Spaniards. The royal crown was, at that time, beset with problems in the islands. Economy remained very poor, thus the collection of taxes was nil, and the government was in financial strain. There was always that fear of the return of the Dutch and the British aggression and invasion to snatch the power of Spain in the Philippine colony. Don Hermogenes A. Rodriguez, the elder of the two brothers, was a very good internal and international affairs diplomat. Don Miguel Rodriguez was a third soldier in the prime of his manhood, who was an expert in military strategies and martial arts. Like his ancestor, he was daring and brave, but kind of heart. When they arrived in the Philippines, the Spanish revenue was nothing. There were no tax collections to run the government. Even the economy of the mother Spain was ailing due to many threats of wars endangering her colonies like Cuba and Puerto Rico. There was no more revenue coming from Mexico, which got her independence